Nationalism and populism became a reality, not only for British citizens, but for millions of... This is a journey. It's built on solidarity, equality, and fairness. It's a journey celebrating democracy. As the progressive family in Europe, we believe that all our voices need to be heard, more than just casting a vote once every 5 years. Our Together journey across Europe started back in 2016, when Europe was shaken to its core. The rise of nationalism and populism became a reality, not only for British citizens, but for millions of Europeans. Since then, we've gathered in public spaces, town halls and community centres. We are not going to stand by and let Europe be torn apart. We have to fight for our vision of Europe, a society for the many, not the few. That's why we are going local, listening to each other, putting our heads together, and finding concrete solutions. The 2019 European elections will be the most important ever held. But we all need to shape the journey, and not just the end result. Together is our chance to contribute, our chance to make change possible. Together, we are all working for a strong and progressive Europe. Only together we can. And together, we will.
It's time to fight for your future. It's time to fight for a fair and social Europe. Let's do that together.
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you from my foreheart. My name is Jaksit Katalin. I'm the today's program's moderator. And as the European Union is facing challenges, I am also facing challenges since we are a bit crowded here. So I will necessarily turn my back to somebody, and the speakers will also turn their back to somebody. And the toughest part will be when we will have a discussion, and we would like to actively involve you into the discussion, so I will request your help. The S&D program started the Together program 3 years ago with the intention to involve European citizens as much as possible to key issues. They want people to share their views, their opinions about how to make our life better and how to reinforce European democracy. This is why I said at the very beginning that this evening is about you. Please speak up, please be critical. You will have the chance to do so when we will have the round table. Where we are not having here a round table, but I trust you. I will be here and I will be helping you. Important information. Interpretation devices are available. What you must know, that channel number 1 is for English and channel number 2 is for Hungarian language. And please follow us through the social media. We are streaming our program. And without further ado, may I request István Újhelyi, member of the European Parliament for the Hungarian Socialist Party, to make his opening speech. Thank you so much, Kata. Good evening to everybody. I don't know if you know, this is an amusement and entertainment place, a favorite place for the youngs. I've never arrived so early. It's a special moment for me to be here under daylight, and it's a special moment that I am not enjoying a couple of beers and I'm talking about big problems. We are here with Csaba Molnár, and we are sharing the moments of the inauguration of today's program. As members of the SND group, we represent the Hungarian left for the Socialist Party and for the Democratic Coalition. So we will have equal time available for the two of us this afternoon. I am going to start as head of the Hungarian SND delegation. Thank you so much. I'm proud of being an MSP for Hungary, and I would like to thank to the electors the opportunity to be there in the European institutions and representing Hungary. We worked a lot for having a different Hungarian word, a European Hungarian word in the European Parliament, and I know that the majority is with us, even though if the Lie Factory and the whole government media calls us as betrayers of the Hungarian interest. But I am convinced that those who love their motherland, those who love Hungary, they want to keep, they want Hungary to remain in the European Union. That's why we are here tonight. We are going to talk about it. Of course, there are many things that we did during the past 5 years, but mostly I'd like to speak about what kind of Europe we want, for what kind of Europe we are going to fight in the forthcoming 5 years. So you will be hearing mostly about it by the experts and by European politicians. I'm the father of 5. And when you see the tough campaign which the government is having against me, I'm one of the victims of their attack. And so I have to explain to my teenager children, what is this whole thing about? Why are they attacking me? And this is the moment I'm telling them that when Hungary must decide whether they want to live in Europe or whether they want to live in Urbanistan, then I have to translate it into their language. So the only way for me was to tell them what I told to the citizens of Sarospatak. Sarospatak is a city 200 kilometers from here, with major education institutions, a great history. Sarospatak is at equal distance from Košice as from Ungvar, 3 Hungarian cities, and Hungarians living in those cities, they all belonged 3 decades ago to the Eastern Bloc, but today 3 Hungarian teenagers in those 3 cities, they have very different life. In Slovakia, the Hungarian teenager who lives in Slovakia pays with euro, lives in a dynamically developing country, and then here we are, who are kind of hesitating whether we keep going with the European Union or whether we will be going away from the European Union. And our government says no, they deny practically everything and they start campaigning against the European Union. But at least we are living in peace and we are living under the umbrella which protects us, the umbrella which is the European Union. And then there is Ungvar, the city in the Ukraine, in the Hungarian region of Transcarpathia, where the same age group as my teenager son is, they are taken into the military and they are taken into the front to take part into the nonsense war of Putin and to die there with no reason at all. It's terrible in the 21st century. Instead of protecting Europe and instead of thinking about the next decades of Europe, how to shape it, we are fighting for Hungary to remain the member of the European Union, and we also want happier Europe. We want a social Europe, because Europe only will be happier only if in every member country all the citizens will have access to the same social achievement, the same security, not only in Germany, from where the head of the S&D group, Udo Bullmann, came. So that's why we are here today. We want to talk about it with you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much, Udo, for being here, and thanks to all my colleagues from the S&D group who are here tonight. So I will give the floor to Csaba Molnár now.
Thank you very much, István. I would like to welcome you all. Do you know what today is? A day. Don't tell me this is Friday. In 2003, with my very weak mathematical capabilities, it was 16 years ago. On the same day, we Hungarians voted on the accession to the European Union, exactly 16 years ago. We had enormous hopes. If you recall, we thought that this certain Maria Hilferstrasse from Vienna will translate itself into the 5th district of Budapest. We thought that the union comes, then something very miraculous will happen to us, and especially those who were young, to a great extent, what we thought has become true. But later speakers will speak about what we should finish, because has not yet been done. Youngsters who usually come together here in this room, they are, I think, younger. Those youngsters, of course, they do not know anything about the origin, but live it as a natural thing. For that generation, it is like for our generation with István. István is older than me. He's a weaker shape now. So our generation had as an enjoyment the change of regime. When we were in the secondary school, when the change of regime took place. We lived it through as a natural phenomenon. Of course, when we were visiting the secondary school, we thought there were borders, but the border patrols let us through without any difficulties. There are people for whom it was not so natural. But for those youngsters who come together Friday night here, what is natural is that there are no borders, there are no border policemen. They can go whatever you want. They can work and live whatever they want. They can have a better life. They can live on their own, not in the same way as the daughter of the Prime Minister Orbán. But the problem is that they don't come back to Hungary. The problem is that they make use of this fantastic possibility. They go abroad, and then they think that it's a much bigger risk and adventure to stay here than to go abroad. Those young people think that the air that they aspire here, and let us not speak yet about retirement pension. What they say is that the air that they aspire here is not acceptable for them. They are now 600,000. They think that it's better for them to get better off elsewhere. So, if we have a task to accomplish, that is to have everybody understand that this Briganti Prime Minister should leave, and we have to make understand to the youngsters that there is a chance to be happy in Hungary. Ladies and gentlemen, the European left, the European liberal left forces is the most important brick for the construction of a good Europe. It is not the same situation on the right. The right wants to build Europe, but in a different way. In Hungary, we have a similar picture, a simpler picture. On the one hand, we have the builders, and on the other side, the destroyers. We are building Europe, but our enemies, opponents, would like to destroy even the bricks already laid. In a nutshell, in Hungary, only us we are the builders of Europe. Only us, we are the defenders of the Europe. Thank you for coming, and I think we will fight together during the next 5 years as we did it before. If we want this Europe to be into a better stage from this half-fabricated stage, so that this Europe transformed herself into a well-built stage, so that something be realized from the federal Europe, then there will be no reason for the young people who come together Friday night. They will no reason to leave for Western Europe. We are fighting for that. Thank you very much for this meeting. Please listen to our guest. Thank you.
And now may I request Udo Bullmann, the president, a member of the European Parliament, president for the S&D Group, to deliver his speech.
Dear Kata, thanks very much. Istvan Chaba, thanks for introducing us into a hopefully wonderful evening. First of all, wonderful audience here, excellent location. My apologies. My English is slightly better than my command of Hungarian. So if you allow me to use the English language, then I would like to invite you to use the headphones and follow me then in English. I'm so happy to be here in this wonderful city of Budapest, in this wonderful country with its great people. Some of you know that when I was elected the leader of the Socialists and Democrats, the Social Democrats in the European Parliament last March 1 year ago, then my first trip was to Hungary. And I'm proud to be back tonight to introduce our political program, to tell you what we did during the last 5 years and what we would like to do in the next 5 years, in the next mandate. We have a political program. We have a match plan. And this match plan is not first and foremost about posts in institutions. This match plan is about people and politics for our people. This is what we will discuss with you tonight. But let me start with a very personal remark. I know that it's not easy these days in Hungary. I know that this is not easy, let me say, to people who record our work today, and let me say to people who follow us as journalists. I know very much that this is not easy to be a journalist today in this world, but especially in Hungary. And let me say also, I know that it is not easy to be a Democrat on the globe in many, many countries. It's not easy to be a Democrat wherever, because you have to be bold, you have to be courageous to speak your mind, you have to be free in your thoughts and in your thinking. But I know that it is not easy, especially in these days, to be a Democrat in Hungary. Having said that, I thank you that you are here. I thank you to meet you tonight, and I thank you for your courage, exchanging views with us tonight. I applaud to the Hungarian Democrats. Thank you very much for your courage. And we could recall a great famous Hungarian, István Bibó, who once said, to be a Democrat, the most important thing is not to be afraid. No fears, my dear friends, no fears. Because if they are able to make us afraid, then we are going to fulfill their concepts. If they are able to take away from us our courage, then they already have won and we already have lost. If they are able to frighten us, then the dangers coming back from the dark ages, and we fulfill them, we make them real, because we are on our knees. But this is what we will never do. We will never get on our knees when it's about freedom and democracy. This is our main message today. To everybody in Hungary, to everybody in Europe, thanks again for being here, my dear friends. I would like to say, I'm proud to be in the middle of Europe, in the country of Julia Hahn, who was the brave man, once and forever in the books of history, who cut through, 30 years ago, who cut through the Iron Curtain. By doing so, bringing us together, the two sides of the family, the East and the West, uniting us in a free Europe. Brave people who were doing that. Courageous people who were doing that. And it was an historian named Judd, Tony Judd, who once wrote, these brave people wanted to get rid of an authoritarian system, of a top-down regime taking away their freedoms. But the opposite, the denial of authoritarian top-down communism, it was not capitalism. It was freedom in Europe. It was freedom in Europe. To live our lives in self-determination together with our friends in the European Union. And here we are, 30 years after the Iron Curtain was done, 15 years after the accession of Hungary. And let us question today, have our dreams come true? Did we fulfill our hopes? Or where are we now? I look at Hungary. I look at the Hungarian peoples, that 10 million great people. 4 million of these 10 million people live in poverty. 1 million of these 4 million live in extreme poverty. I look at Hungary and the hospitals in Hungary. I see doctors and nurses disappearing. What about the care of the elderly? What if we get sick? Is there still anybody to take care of everybody of us? Do you have already to watch out how old you get to have proper medical care? Is it about, you may get, hopefully never something serious. You are 49, perhaps you deserve something, medical critical treatment, but if you are crossing the 70s, do you still get the proper treatment that you need? I'm looking at the regions and at the economic development. I see economic activity in Hungary is held up by some foreign corporations, a handful of. But that is not sustainable development. This is not a sustainable development in all parts of Hungary. And by the regional and structural funds of Europe, of course. Millions and millions are transferred to Hungary per week. And you deserve that. The people of Hungary deserve that. But we call it regional funds. It's a fund for the regions. We call it social funds. It's a fund for the social issues, for the families, for those in need. But we do not have budget lines for the oligarchs of Mr. Orban. We do not have any one budget line that reads funds for Orban's buddies. The oligarchs, no. So what are we doing about it? What are we doing? I'm a German social democrat. I'm defending regional policy. I am defending solidarity in Europe. And I tell my fellow Germans, if you would like to live in growth and prosperity tomorrow, our neighbors have to do the same. Only if you allow our neighbors, the economies of the countries in our neighborhood to flourish, people to have a decent job, have excellent qualification, only then you will have a bright future for Germany, because we are neighbors, we are friends. And the one is the precondition for the other. That we have to learn, because we are interconnected. The 500 million internal market can only have a decent life if the neighbor has a decent life. Other ideologies are lies. So I'm fighting for solidarity in Europe. But we have to watch out that the money is going to the right people and to the mayors and regional managers who are honorable and taking care of the future of their people in the respective locations. What are we doing in a situation where this money is stolen away from them and brought to, I do not know, what kind of channels? Unfortunately, Olaf, the anti-corruption authority in the European Union, has countless cases, and we really regret that the national authorities, who then afterwards have to go and look at that and clarify and take action, are not sufficiently doing that in Hungary. I will always defend that the wrong people are not punished for the sins of those who were guilty. So we will continue with our regional policy. We will continue with our investment. We are continuing with our solidarity. But what we could expect is that national authorities guarantee the proper handling of these funds. And what we can expect is that they participate afterwards also in the collaboration with a new European entity, the public prosecutor on the European level. The European public prosecutor has to have a chance to look into that. And I say that will be the obligation of each and any government that fails in the next mandate. We will not let them go stealing the money from the people. We will not let them go. And this is my message to Mr. Orban. You will not go away with that. You will not continue like that. Because the Democrats of Europe will take you to pay the bill for that. Otherwise, you cannot continue to hide that you do not have an economic policy. He does not have a strategy for the future. He does not have a strategy for the social decency in his country. This is what we will be doing. What is our match plan? Our match plan is to say, look, Europe is in front of big challenges. Climate change. We only have 10 years to go. We welcome all the young people that commit themselves to becoming political activists, to intervene, to tell the politicians, to tell all generations, stop it, because it's our future. And we have to preserve our soil, our air, our natural resources. Yes, we want to have good food, animal welfare, and not the destruction of the planet. So that is a new incoming generation. We can only support and make them strong because we need them. But one element also has to be said. This transformation of the old industrial structures towards a new sustainable economy has to happen in the best interest of our people. And not only for the happy few, but for everybody. So greening the old neoliberal, unjust model that is permanently redistributing the energy, the money, the wealth, the prospects from the poor ones to the rich and super rich one is the wrong way. We want to have, and this is our message to Socialists and Democrats, we want to have sustainability, but sustainability for all. Not only the neighbors in the rich quartiers should have the nice trees and the greening of the environment, whereas the people and the kids of the poor ones in the streets where the traffic is are polluted by the old diesel cars. This is not our policy. And one lesson also for Mr. Macron in France. No, it's not possible, dear Emmanuel. We praise you for your fight against Le Pen, but if you would like to lead also in France on this necessary transformation, no, you cannot cut the taxes for the rich and the super rich and then go to the rural areas where the work is done, where the agriculture production has to be organized and tell you, well, you are a poor farmer, you are going long distances, but I saw you, you are going to pay for the transformation, whereas the taxes for the rich are deleted. This is not our story. And unfortunately, Emmanuel Macron, meanwhile, has learned sometimes there are new phenomena in your streets, like yellow vests. You see them everywhere, and they are complaining, and etc., etc. So we always defended the idea of lifelong learning in the European Union. I'm pretty sure the President of the Republic has entered into this lifelong learning circle now. And then we can afterwards talk to him again. And if he has made up his mind, if he has made up his decisions, then we will see whether he is a comrade, whether he is a colleague, whether he is a collaborator, or whether we are in competition. We welcome him then. I told him in the European Parliament, Emmanuel, it's your decision. If you are transforming towards the better, the new environment, the new better prospects of this globe, and helping us to also radically change in our social behaviors for the people and not against, then you are our ally. If not, look for majorities elsewhere. This is what we say. And one message also to the conservatives, and this is what is going to happen right after the next election. Don't think you get easy deals with us. This was yesterday. The new story is different. We put what we discussed tonight with you. We are in a dialogue with European citizens. We listen to you, we hear your advice, we hear your stories. That is introduced in our programs. And then our programs are on the negotiation table. And on this negotiation table, it will be decided who are our partners, with whom can we make that real, that the European dream, leave authoritarian regimes, enter into the area of civic freedom, defend our rights, enjoy your life, but enjoy also the social and economic prospects of a better future. And if you help us to make that real for 500 million people in Europe, all nations, we are your friends, and we help to share responsibility in the scheme of governance in the European Union. If not, don't count on us. Don't think we are entering into any coalition agreement or whatever that is not for policy change. Our people deserve policy change. And only if they see us fight, then they stop to be disappointed, they stop to run after the right-wing extremists, and they can again believe in democracy and in their personal future. This is what we are doing, and my firm belief is that only we, the progressives, can do that. This is a standalone element of our politics. We see the needs of ordinary people, and we see the need to protect the planet. And this is the social democracy to come. This is our joint work. We as Democrats and Socialists are fighting for that. And my last word, where on this earth, where in this Europe, people could better understand than in Hungary what the fight is about. I count on you, and you can count on me. Thank you very much for your attention.
You have heard Mr. Udo Bullmann, member of the European Parliament, president of the S&D Group in the European Parliament, and now comes the chair of the Hungarian Socialist Party, Bertalan Tóth. Thank you so much, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. May I also welcome you with great respect. I'm truly happy to see so many faces here, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to talk about the future of Europe with you. But maybe the most important thing, we can talk about the future of Hungary in Europe. Csaba told us that 16 years ago there was a plebiscite where Hungarians turned up at the urns. Well, 84% of them said yes to Hungary becoming a member state of the European Union, a member of the community of values, which is about cohesion, which is about future, which is about the cooperation among European people. And what we can now see in Hungary, we can see processes by the government. Then we have to declare that this government is having a policy against the will of the Hungarian people, because many polls confirm that Hungarian citizens, they do believe in the European community. They want to remain members of the European community, of the European Union, and they go even further. They say that in the European community we want more cooperation, deeper integration, and the majority is not supporting the sovereignty of the nation state. And they don't want a Europe of nation state, because what is the government's dream of Europe of nations about? It's about the possibly less regulation, because then they don't have to respect the regulations. It's about the funds which secures for them the mafia-style distribution mechanism in Hungary, where they don't give the possibility to speak up for the opposition, and this is good for them. But Hungarian people want a different Europe. Hungarian people want a Europe of cooperations, and we want to listen to this, and we must represent this, and our program, which in many aspects is similar to other parties in the S&D Group. So our program is about a Europe like this. Our program is about a social Europe, where the most important thing is not the single market. The most important thing is not how the economies function in the European Union, but it is about the European citizens. This is about people. This is about Hungarian European people. I must say, we are Europe. We represent the interests of Hungarian people, and we will have the responsibility, because we have seen what has been going on in the European People's Party, so we will have the task to represent the interest of Hungary and the interest of the Hungarian people. And the social Europe, as I mentioned, is about European citizens must have access, equal access to the distribution of the wealth, which secures them a decent life standard. So this is when we wanted unified minimum wages, unified pension in Europe, unified social rights, family allowance. And I know this is just an utopia. The wage union is just an utopia. But what we can reach is that all European citizens, all workers will have the same rights, a Hungarian, a Dutch, or whoever. So we socialists, we Democrats, we must secure to the European citizens the access to the money which will help their living, which secures the security of Hungarian citizens. And so this is why we have the Red-Green Alliance, which is about to talk about that, which is about talking about the future generations, which is talking about the environment protection in Europe. And though our representatives are sitting in different groups in the European Parliament, that we can together work for all these principles and all these values, because because politicians on the left should touch upon the environment protection, as the Pope is also standing up and saying that the change in the environment is a social question which has a direct effect to our everyday life. And what we can see in Europe and in the world, the bad phenomena are not just because the access to wealth is not equal to everybody, but this is also due to harmful effects of the environment, because we are not protecting the environment. And these are the principles based on which we will be representing the interests of the Hungarian people and the interests of the European people. Thank you very much for your attention. Ladies and gentlemen, the forthcoming 5 years will bring major challenges, major changes in Europe. We, on the left, we will have to fight against the Prime Minister and against the populist friends of Mr. Orban, the extremist populists, because they are going only after their own interests, and they are not thinking about the interest of Hungary or any other nation in Europe. So it is our task to enforce it. Thanks again for your attention.
Most pedig következzen
And now I give the floor to Ms. Klára Dobrev, number 1 on the list of the Democratic Coalition. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's start with the essential. All of us here and many other millions of hundreds of millions of people have a dream. We have a dream. This is a Europe where everybody lives in welfare. A Europe where there are now first-rank and second-class citizens, not a Europe of two speeds. A Europe, a competitive, strong, that can compete with China, with the United States of America. A Europe that is for the innovation, for the science, for the technical development, a driving force for those phenomena. A Europe that can protect its citizens against the foreign adversaries, be it terrorists or internet cyber criminals coming from Russia. But we have the dream of a Europe that can protect its citizens against its own dictators and ill-intentioned governments. That's if the governments are behaving badly against them. That's our European dream. But let us not forget, we Europeans, we have been for a long time, have a plan. We have a plan how to realize this dream, from Victor Hugo until Winston Churchill through Oscar Yassi. We have a plan to transform Europe into reality, what we think. This is the United States of Europe. That is our dream for Europe. But in Hungary, this is a thing that people don't dare to pronounce because they are afraid, of this dictator, of this malintended government. They are afraid of Viktor Orban. What I can tell you, I'm not afraid of him. The Democratic Coalition is not afraid of Orban. You know why? Because when they treat us as traitor, I know, then I am serving in the best way the interest of my homeland. If they say that I'm for the foreign countries, then I know that within my heart, this is a real Hungarian feeling. When they say that I am a soldier of Soros, then I start to laugh at it over the former Soros scholarship student, Orban. I don't know what they say. I know what I want, what is the best for our country, for our motherland. And if we have a task, us European Democrats in the group of S&D here in Hungary for the progressive, then it is to tell our country, please don't be afraid, because with a stronger Europe, we, us Hungary and Hungarians, we will become stronger and richer. How many examples we do have? We were speaking about the referendum that took place 16 years ago on our accession to the European community. Then let us remind our people, have you become poorer, weaker, that after Schengen and according Schengen, we executing the defense of Europe together? Or would you like to queuing at the border with Slovakia, with Austria? Have we become poorer or weaker because the development policy and the agricultural policy is the common domain in the European Union? Let us, the agrarian workers or farmers who get a lot of money, or let us ask those people who drive on the newly built motorways. Let us ask people who enjoy the fruits of European funds. If we do something in common, this is not that we are weaker or poorer. On the contrary, what the populist extreme right, Salvini, Kaczynski, Orban, Le Pen, I don't know, I don't even want to retain their names. They know themselves that what they are saying is a lie. They want to get personal benefits, and they want to close their countries to keep their people in ignorance, because they know very well that the problems of our modern world, there is no a single or one country that could propose solutions. Not just Hungary, not even the strong Germany is not available to stop climate changes alone. Even if Orban thinks that if the wire fence is prolonged next to Austria, the climate change will stop at the border with Austria. This will not happen. And not now. Let's think about things. The increase of level of the ocean's water or the disappearance of glaciers. These are problems. But let's come back to Hungary. Let's think about our compatriots who die because of the heat in the summer months, because there are no air conditioners in our hospitals. Or let's think about Europe, and in the next summers we will go to the market, that the drought that struck Hungary in the latest month. Can we stop these phenomena, natural phenomena, alone? No, not. We cannot. And there are multinational companies. I have iPhone. I look everything through Google. We translate the this program through streaming. But these countries, or I would say these enterprises, these enterprises have grown bigger than countries, not just Hungary, but even Germany. They are more powerful. Who will sit down with them to discuss tax policies, protection of data? Who will discuss with them about equal conditions of labor, about trade unions? We are not capable, not strong enough alone, on our alone. I should continue with international terrorism, international political challenges. This is a number of tasks that we could solve only together. Let me add one thing. I read an article yesterday, a few months ago in China. They implanted human genes into the brain of a monkey, apes. The brain was changed and the ape became cleverer. Unbelievable. Medicine can treat diseases that we have never thought about. But on the other hand, it's frightening. What will happen next? Will it be Hungary, us, who will solve the questions, the physical, ethical questions on the existence of human being? No, we will not solve those issues alone. We will continue together. Those who protect no sovereignty and are afraid for their sovereignty, then I would like to ask them, and the nation state, state that closing down, that doesn't want anything, really standalone Hungary, what will be the result? That our opinion not will be taken into account, that we will not have a word to say, because we will have no weight, because these are problems that we can solve only together. Somebody said a few minutes ago, and I have not yet mentioned this subject, that during the last 30 years the problems of globalization and economic development, inequalities increased within societies, whereas in the one part of the world millions got better. On the other hand, in another part of the world, in Europe, middle classes went down, and we have a plus factor, the government of Orban, who helps the middle class and deprives the poorer people. This is a problem, and we cannot solve it alone. Only together with the 500 million people in Europe, and whose representatives sit down with the representatives of the multinational companies, and they will say, hey, girls and boys, it's time to pay normal taxes. It's time to have a fair tax policies. Pay your taxes normally, honestly, because only in that case will we have enough money to pay family allowances and a decent wage. And only then will us have the possibility to realize our dream for a better life for everyone. And last but not maybe, those who know me could say that I could speak for hours about the United States of Europe. So let's finish my one remark to those who are afraid for the Hungarian sovereignty if we are a member of a stronger community. Tell us please, who is happier, the person who decides on everything alone, only himself, or those who have families, children, friends? If you ask me, I thought I ceded one part of my sovereignty when I got a family. Since then, there are no questions that I could take decisions alone. Especially if the children are already teenagers, then I have no decision to take alone. So, only those people are strong who have friends, who belong to something, to somebody, who solve their problems together. We are not weaker, not poorer if we belong to a strong community. It is the contrary. We are happier, we are stronger, and we will assure a happier, better life for ourselves and for our children. Those who are afraid for our sovereignty threatens our position to tell our opinion, to say what we have, because we will have no such a possibility. If I have to tell you my opinion, I would like to belong to a strong family, to the strong family of the European nations. That's why I'm going to fight for the United States of Europe.
And now we have arrived to the point when we want to involve you. We have arrived to the public debate. But before starting that part, let me tell you that we still have free spaces available. So please just walk in, please have a seat. It will be easier for you to participate, to share your opinions with us. May I encourage you to come forward. Those who are very much in the back, that we are still having free seats here. So there are experts and participants of the public debate. I am going to one by one introduce them, and I will ask them to tell a couple of words about themselves, and then we will start with the questions. Let me start with the ladies. Maria Skora, the Senior Project Manager for Dialogue on Europe.
Just.
Of course. Does this work? Good afternoon. It's my honor to be in Budapest tonight. My name is Maria Skora. I work at the progressive think tank in Berlin called Das Progressive Zentrum. And there I am responsible for researching on East Central Europe, so also the Visegrad Group, which is Poland, Hungary, Czechia, and Slovakia. I also cover transatlantic relations, and we are devoted to foster and to create a more just, more sustainable, more progressive Europe, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. Tüttő Kata az EU Régiók Bizottságának tagja, az Európai Szocialisták Pártjának tagja.
Kata Tüttő, PES Group Member, European Committee of the Regions.
Nézni, hogy lehet körbe táncolni.
Thank you very much. It was a marvelous performance, what I've witnessed, how somebody can dance around in a space and fill the whole space as a lady. I am a politician for local things. I am from the local authority, so I was dealing with questions of my own city, Budapest, and we were researching the factor of happiness as city dwellers, and we found that the happiest are those who know their neighbors. So that's why we want to construct cities in Europe which link spaces which interconnect people, cities with huge green areas that can be used by everybody and which can facilitate our leisure time. And I am also into the energy questions and environment protection. So those are issues which are of my major concern. László Andor, former Commissioner for Employment and Social Affairs for Hungary. What else could I say after that? Well, good evening to everybody. Yeah, truly, between 2010 and 2014, I was a member of the Commission for Employment and Social Affairs. It means participating in legal issues, participating in topics of the labor market and many other issues which I am still very much interested on, the protection of European workers. I still believe it very important. The Roma integration and its implementation is also one of my concerns. There are many words on paper, but reality sometimes doesn't reflect those many words on paper. And then Jacint Horváth, member of the European Committee of Regions. Thank you very much. I am also belong to this strangely named committee. It's a bit like the European Parliament, but with half of that many people. This is an organ of the local representatives in Europe. There are many from Hungary, there are many from the government and very few from the Hungarian opposition. And in this Committee of Regions, I am a member of a subcommittee which deals with research and development and social affairs. And I am a municipal representative in Nagykanizsa, where it's difficult to be an opposition city councillor. We have seen many examples in Europe over the past years that I'm going to talk about all these examples, which is the way that we shouldn't follow. And we have seen some examples which show the way to follow for the next years. But it, of course, needs a lot of efforts, a lot of resistance, and a lot of money. Well, I'm going to talk about it later. Thank you very much. And last but not least, José Antonio Moreno Diaz, Workers' Group, European Economic and Social Committee from Spain. Thank you.
Spanish. I'm a Spanish lawyer. I'm a trade unionist from the biggest Spanish trade union, Comisiones Obreras. And I'm representative at the European Social Economic Committee. What's this? You can ask me. This is the voice of the civil society, the European civil society, all over the European Union. We are more than 350 members representing the organized civil society all over the European Union. We are 3 groups. Group 1 representing the companies and entrepreneurs. Group 2 representing the workers, like me, representing the Spanish workers and the Spanish trade unions. And Group 3 representing the diversity group. This is for older people, younger people, consumers, farmers, fisheries, etc. Now I'm a lawyer since 2015 representing Spain, and I'm working now about migration and asylum issues. A hard question, as you know, especially since 2015. I'm from the 2018. I'm the president of the Fundamental Rights and Rule of Law Group. Why? Because at the European Union citizenship level, at the European Union civil society level, we're extremely concerned about the situation of rule of law and fundamental rights all over the European Union. It was unthinkable that we can be in troubles with human rights, with fundamental rights, with the rule of law all over the European Union. We have now some member states, we have now some governments that are attacking fundamental rights, and we have to react. We are citizens of the European Union, and we are proud to be that. So we have to react. We have to recover the concept of militant democracy, and we have to react and to defend fundamental rights. We are to fight, and we are all together in with one aim, with one objective, to defend fundamental rights, to defend Article 2 of the Treaty of the European Union, the fundamental rights, the European values, and the European principles. Thank you.
Köszönjük szépen.
Thank you very much. My task is to put the first question, because sometimes it's really difficult to start. So I'm about to start with a question which is one of the most important questions in Hungary, when hundreds of thousands of Hungarians had left this country. Many among them very young people, and when we are having a shortage here in the Hungarian labor market, then I would like to know what are the answers. So how can we lure these people back to Hungary? How can we then keep them in Hungary, and not just because of labor issues, but also because this divides families. So let's have a look at whether the EU may have some measures to approve which can help these young people to refine their place again in Hungary, with a secure healthcare system. Well, I'm now paying attention to the participants of the public debate. Of course, László Andor, who is very much into this field. Well, if I can, I would take this question for me. Well, the most important thing is decent working conditions and decent wages. So in Hungary, the flow of people leaving the country started because of the new labor code, which has been presented by the government, which was rather harmful not just for the youngster but also for the elderly. But what about the young people, and what about the EU's possible share in it? Are the guarantees? guarantees counseling to young people, further education for them, education for them in order to avoid long-term unemployment. But there is a condition for this, and this is the functioning labor service, which practically was destroyed by the current government in Hungary. It should be rebuilt. Those institutions should be rebuilt, and then hopefully the exodus of the young people will be less significant. Thank you very much for your attention.
Can we stay seated? It will be more comfortable. Thank you very much. I would like to add one thing to what Laszlo just said. In recent years, in many countries, we have been showed many successful programs where they succeeded in returning such procedures. I'm speaking about the immigration of Hungarians. The problem is that in Hungary we don't have even the traces of such programs. And then I have asked many times the question, how did you start the solution of this problem? And the answer was always, we first sat down with the social partners. I'm speaking about community partners. We had long discussions. The procedure was long. It lasted a long time. But at the end of the day, we created a common denominator along which we could start to work, because it meant an agreement even between political adversaries. And this was the beginning of a procedure that led to a capability to reduce exodus of people, young people, or where it stopped clearly. I think those who pronounce speeches and are seated here, they are also members of the roundtable discussion, and the public would appreciate it. I think those who ask questions could ask those questions. Oh, no, good evening. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, Mr. Újhelyi left in 2017. He was the MEP of the year. In his absence, I'm asking the question of Mr. Szanyi Tibor, the other Hungarian socialist MEP. My questions: if the Brexit is postponed, can the Brits vote in May? Because if it is the case, then the Socialist and Democrats group will win the European elections together with the British Labour Party. Let's quote another example, Sweden. The Social Democratic Party will win the elections and will replace the right-wing government. It will be the same case in Spain. The left-wing party is heading in the polls. I'm very happy. Then another country, Portugal. Socialist Party is heading the polls. The same thing in Denmark. So the trend is where in Europe we have general elections, socialist parties are heading the polls. If we have the British Labour MEPs, we will win the elections this year.
Thank you very much. May I also welcome everybody. I'm just turning around here in a 360 degree. There is a concrete part and the general part of this question. It will be very personal what I'm going to tell you. When we had awakened on that Friday morning after the British referendum, we just looked around, what is it? And then I was slipping my coffee, and I said, oh, it's not going to happen. Well, it looks like the history gives me reason, because it looks it's really difficult to get into the European Union, but it might be even more difficult to get out of the European Union. So I truly hope it won't be easy for Hungary to get out of the European Union in spite of the efforts of the current government. But concretely, whether there will be election to the European Parliament in Great Britain, well, in principle, the chance is there. Legally, they have started preparations. Hopefully, they think they may cancel it just one day before the elections. It's not really serious. Oh, it was good. So I don't think chances are they may reach any agreement before the 22nd of May about the deal with the EU. Maybe I am just daydreaming, but it's okay. In June 2016, I said it's not going to happen. What is today? We are on the 12th of April in 2019. So let me say it shouldn't happen. I do believe there will be election to the European Parliament, and the British Labour Party has real chances to win the elections there. And also, Social Democrats are going quite good in other European countries. The British case shows that attacking Europe with nonsense, it doesn't take us anywhere. I was personally witnessing discussions when they told me, hey, socialist guy, what's happening to your forces in Europe? And no, it looks that we are doing truly good. The trends in January, in February, in March shows that the advance of the extremist forces in Europe is about to stop, and maybe we will be able to stop them. And well, I would also like to add to the general part of my answer that if we have chances, and I believe we do have chances, to keep building up the social Europe with many proposals. Let me just mention the European social pillar. Udo can witness me how we were working together, and these all shows that people has had enough of blah blahs, and they want to see clear European prospects, and it's going to happen. Europe is going to deliver to the people. Thank you very much. Another question behind you. I'm Esther Nagy, and I'd like to ask, I really liked Mr. Bullman's what he said, that they will be fighting for avoiding the misuse of European funds here in Hungary. So what's your plan concretely? Well, the European.
I think.
And again, only not to be misunderstood. I want to see regional and structural fund money in Hungary, but I want to have it for the honest people. I want to have it for the real regions. I want to have it for the mayors who would like to invest in the infrastructure of their town, of their municipalities, and of the future of Hungarian people. I do not want to see it for Orban's oligarchs. And there are two different ways to treat with that, but no third one. Either the Orban government seriously looks at what the independent institution in Europe, Olaf, tells them to go after, and then they implement, they clarify, and they bring it to justice. And if this is not wished for or possible, they have to at least collaborate with the public prosecutor in Europe, because it's about financial interests of the European Union, and it's about financial interests of Hungarian people. They have to be protected. Otherwise, the government cannot receive further on the money to either infringe or betray its own people. That has to have consequences in the new mandate.
Let me explain to you, because there is a ghost walking. Okay, I change. There's a ghost walking all over the European Union. This is the ghost of racism. This is the ghost of populism. This is the ghost of xenophobia. This is the ghost of discrimination against minorities. This is the ghost of intolerance. And we are all European citizens, and we have not to allow this. Let me read just one article, Article 2 of the European Union Treaty. The Union is founded on the values of respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including, I remark, including the right of persons belonging to minorities. These values are common to the member states in a society which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between women and men prevail. Don't forget this Article 2. This is the basement of our community. This is the basement of union. So it was unthinkable a few years ago that one member state, that one government of one member state couldn't attack fundamental rights. And we have no tools to respond as union, as a community, to these attacks. Now, there's an initiative of the Commission to take away the funds of the European Union if one member state, one government is attacking fundamental rights. We have to defend our human rights. We have to defend the rule of law. And this was the first initiative to take out this kind of funding from the European Union if you are not respecting European values.
The lady over there, a micro for her, please. Thank you. I'd like to ask if the European Parliament and other institutions, when will be the system of decision-making be changed? When will be the mechanism of consensus be changed at the European institutions, and how? Thank you. We don't have this problem in the European Parliament. Those who threaten with the danger of the extremist right, as Tibor said, this danger is not so important as we are told. But what is a real danger? There might create a blocking minority, which by definition doesn't exist in the European Parliament, simply because there are just a few votes which are not going with a simple majority, but by a two-thirds majority. Normally, all our decisions are taken by a simple majority of MEPs present. Well, it's not the same at the Council. Of course, to change the decision-making mechanism of the Council, we would need to modify the treaty. And when we say that we want united European states, then there's at least two legs: the social leg, and there is a legal, public legal leg. So we want to stop the council to exist. We are thinking about a two-chamber-like decision-making mechanism, like a lower chamber and a higher chamber. So the lower the higher chambers can accept delegates from the national parliaments. It would be very similar to Bundesrat, as the German federal parliament has it. But then it won't have a blocking minority, so it won't be possible that the minority could block the will of the majority, and then it will be a very transparent decision-making mechanism. Because our problem with the council, our major problem is not just that it's complicated, that people really don't understand how decisions are taken. Well, who does understand? Nobody. Well, I was twice a minister in former government under the Gyurcsány, under the government, under the Bajnai government. I used to sit there in the council. Well, I must admit, it was not a real transparent procedure what was happening there. It was a venue for deals behind the scenes, which is not good for a democracy. And should we have a transparent, publicly working two-chamber European Parliament instead of the Council, that would be a very important step in further developing the European democracy. I think it's not going to happen tomorrow, but maybe it can be an objective for the day after tomorrow.
Bocsánat. Ja, szól, oké. Szóval igazándiból én most megint kezdem jobban érezni magam, mert látom, hallom és tapasztalom, hogy más országokban is élnek még olyan emberek, akik hajlandóak tenni a demokráciáért, hajlandóak tenni azért, hogy a szolidaritás az végképp ne halljon ki senkiből ebben az Európai Unióban. És amikor annak idején létrehozták az Európai Uniót, akkor az egy nagyon jó dolog volt, jó kezdeményezés, hogy ne legyen több háború, hogy egységesüljünk, mert úgy tudunk válaszokat adni felmerülő kérdésekre. Csak kihagyták belőle azt, amit egyébként...
There was a missing problem in the document, because nobody could think about somebody who wants to destroy construction in building. I haven't heard anything else from this government for 10 years than that we are fighting against the caretaker, we are fighting anybody, and mainly with the European Union. And at the same time, we are asking for the money of the European Union, for the European funds. And sorry, I'm excusing myself on behalf of all Hungarians with the European Democrats, because I'm very, very ashamed about the existence of such a government in this country. And it has been the case for 10 years. I feel ashamed here in Hungary and abroad. Many, many people have experienced that abroad. It's very shameful to be Hungarian. We are looked at very strangely. I cannot answer the questions that I'm asked. I cannot tell them. I don't know what to do. Should I tell them that my compatriots are stupid because they elected the Orban government? I don't think this is the case, but too simply, so stupid things are given to the people that really I'm not aware that we had results that we had in the past. So, these days, Olaf has been inquiring here in Hungary the future European Public Prosecutor's Office, if it comes into existence. And maybe in some way Hungary could join it. But we in this country cannot treat even our own problems. As Professor Andor told us in 2011, when they changed the labor code, this was the beginning where people started to immigrate from this country, and in a great number, because it was unlivable. Our own country has become unlivable. And I'm not speaking about the material conditions, but the mental state, the mentalhood in this country. It would be nice to start new things within the country. The Socialist and the Democratic Coalition try to explain to people that they should do something else. nonetheless, they believe what they hear from the television. Please, your question, the question. This for improving the public feelings. Are there any means to improve the public mental health? We will have municipal elections this year, but does the European Union or does any concrete committee or commission have the possibility to intervene more concretely into the Hungarian situation?
Hát köszönöm a hozzászólásért, ez tényleg egy nagyon értékes hozzászólás volt, és
about it because we actually don't have it yet. It's an unfinished project. Well, one has to be fair. There are many initiatives on the way to complete it. European Social Fund that has pumped a lot of money for great initiatives in especially this part of Europe, for infrastructure, for social infrastructure, universities, hospitals, also human capital. Well, we have directives that set minimal standards for the labor market, and we also have the European Pact for Social Rights, but it's very difficult, technically, to build social Europe in the Europe of 28 so far. In 28 countries of different welfare states and different approach to the presence of institutions in your life. However, this only gets complicated when we think about the European Euro crisis over the last decade, how the austerity damaged the belief in solidarity in Europe and how it scarred the societies, especially Southern European societies, for years to come. But there is also another problem that this part of Europe chose as the strategy 10 years ago, maybe, to compete at the global economy or European economy with low labor costs. And we got into a trap of low income, of medium income, and we cannot break this ceiling, this glass ceiling, and we cannot get away. Why I'm saying we? Well, I told you that I work and live in Germany, but I'm Polish, actually. And as you know, the situation in Poland is also not rosy and cozy. But yeah, so it is. But what do Polish people do? They totally go on the streets. And it's pro-government demonstrations and anti-government demonstrations. And it's the women's rights that, unfortunately, these activists are often attacked by rising neo-fascists in Poland, what Jose said. But, you know, we generally protest on the streets. And so it's normal. But I was so amazed when I saw what the Hungarian society, what the Hungarian workers did when they took to the streets. And it took their courage and their guts to go and say, no, this slave law, because this is what I'm talking about, won't pass anymore. We're just not taking it. We're not saving the reputation of this government in the eyes of investors through, well, selling the workers' rights, you know. So I just wanted to let you know, and everybody know, Europe sees it. And Europe recognizes the courage people have in this country, and that they're, I guess, coming to a slow end. And I want to tell you there is solidarity in Europe, and there is solidarity to you from Poland. And we will overcome. We will overcome sooner or later.
Itt az úr szeretne kérdezni.
Köszönöm szépen.
Thank you very much. I'm Gábor Vidler. Excuse me for while he is going to speak in German, and I am asking it in German because there was an article in Die Zeit this week under this title, and one of the collaborators of the Central European Institute wrote this article under a fake name, but that article paints the Hungarian domestic situation very, very black. I am not surprised because I don't see it rosy either. So it was really shocking to see Davis bold letters under this title in a German newspaper. So I don't know whether it is good or not that it has been written, but the article also speaks about that the demagogue propaganda which is going on in Hungary for many years now has an effect that can only be fought over generations, and this is really difficult. So my question is, are we really lost? This is to Udo Bullmann. Are we really lost, Mr. Bullmann, here in Hungary? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I was not astonished that somebody would raise it. I know the article. I know the description of the situation. But what I tried, and thanks to Maria, I'm really grateful to the Polish voice in this round here, because you are not alone. The right wing, the extremists, the nationalists are in more than one country. They organize themselves under generalizing their lies and their hatred, but then it comes back to specific conditions in the respective countries. Maria was talking about Poland. We are talking today about Hungary, but you see also Salvini in Italy. You see Mr. Kurz in Austria leaning towards the right. And in Spain, I'm really sorry to say, we were sure fascism will not have a chance anymore. And what is going to happen in Andalusia in a situation where the old, dark, right-wing, authoritarian style comes back, threatening us, and here especially threatening women, as a reaction to our modern democratic life. So the answer is continue on Brexit. Brexit was the first exercise where Steve Bannon, Cambridge Analytica, tried on purpose to deconstruct Europe. We have powerful enemies. There is Putin in Moscow having no sympathy, zero sympathy with the freedom of thought, the freedom of self-organization in our civic communities, our modern lifestyle, where you do not accept anymore that you are governed by somebody who has the courage to tell you what you have to believe, how to live, what you think, what you can speak about. Over forever, because this is Europe. We are in the middle of Europe. But unfortunately, on the other side, you have Mr. Trump. The United States used to be an ally of Europe, but what is now? The guy is thinking the whole world is his personal business model. What about labor rights? We don't need it anymore. We have Mr. Trump's rule. So we have the government of the strong economic power. That's enough. They hate us. They hate us from both sides. Because we believe in democracy, we believe in good neighborhood, and we try to build good partners internally as well as externally. Brexit is not about the Brits. Urbanism is not only about Hungary. It's about freedom of speech, social relations, a prospect for everybody on the globe. So the people who are looking at climate change, the young generation, the people who are internationalists and trade unionists, they look to Europe in this new situation and they say you have to win this fierce fight, because if you do not win, who should win on this globe? Our common future for the better. This is our responsibility. So never ever think you are alone. Never ever think you are lost. It is our fight. This is why we are here. We are united for the political alternatives. We are united to save the globe. We are united to defend people's rights and labor interests of working class people. And the only thing we have to do is to understand that we stand together. And then again, no fear, never ever. They will not make us afraid. As Maria said, we shall overcome.
Yeah, I can see there are many. May I ask the microphone here?
First, I was the only independent Lord Mayor candidate in the last election, and I'm still working without salary with the Hungarian corruption cases, election cheating, the Hungarian women principle robbering, and I try to helping with a very important subject. It's in Hungary, and now I'm turning to Hungarian just to understand everyone what I want to say. A devizásokra szeretném felhívni a figyelmet ezen a rendezvényen.
Well, I would like to draw your attention to those people who had taken loans in foreign currencies. This is one of the major problems in Hungary, and all my respect to the Polish judges, because Kaczynski couldn't scare the Polish judges, and this financial construction caused many problems in Hungary. Many Hungarian families are now in a terrible situation. They might lose their houses, and even though we are requesting help from Europe, we do not receive it. There are many who try to help those poor Hungarians who are obliged to pay back twice or three times what they had taken, and now they are losing everything. Everything is taken from them, and we would like to request and to have the support and the help of the European Union. And I would like to draw your attention, Mr. Bertalan Tóth, that the Hungarian Socialist Party on the past elections, if there's no Gergő Karácsony and if there's no Budapest, you wouldn't have reached the threshold to get into the Hungarian parliament. So it was just due to the citizens of Budapest that you could do that. And I'd like to tell you, Mr. Bullmann, I don't know whether you're aware of that the last person, the last social democrat who was a decent lady social democrat was called Anna Kétli. Well, she was living, this is for you, Mr. Bullmann, she was living 80 years ago, and what's happening in Hungary is that trade unions are destroyed in Hungary, and even those industries, let's say the textile industry, which appear to be competitive even in the eyes of German business people, doesn't exist anymore. So, well, please cut it short, because we want the question. So there is a huge social crisis. Public workers can only be in Hungary those who are supporters of Fidesz, and this situation is the responsibility of the whole Hungarian political class. If we keep up this election system that we are having now in Hungary, we will never be able to defeat Mr. Orbán on elections, and if we are going to be defeated in May on the European elections, and if we won't be able to take back during the fall the local authorities, then Mr. Orbán can stay here for the next decades. Thank you very much for listening to me. Excuse me, I am the member of the Austrian Social Democratic Party. We are all members of the trade unions. We are all members of a lot of working for us. We did not destroy trade unions in my country. You were speaking not only about your country, but you were speaking about the whole Europe. It's a lie, it's a lie, it's a blatant lie what you said as far as the whole Europe is concerned. Well, Jesus Christ. Well, this is why we are gathered here tonight. Yes, I don't want to take away the moderator's role, but please keep it back a little bit. It's becoming too candent, the discussion. Well, Anna Kately, mentioned by the young lady, was not the last, but one of the very first social democrats in Hungary. And the other thing is, and I feel the responsibility of my gender as a man. There should be a man standing up and acknowledge that we are loaded with wonderful social democrat women in this country. And let me add something else. Gurmai Zita cannot be here with us because of an ailment, but she is the president of the Hungarian left women movement, and she is Hungarian. Thank you very much.
De visszahitelesek.
I would like to ask two quick questions, but these are important questions, fundamental ones. The first one, what is the reality of the European Union? We are speaking about 28 member states. There are many, many political parties. Many interests are in conflict. And I think that the Union is in front of not just smaller changes, but radical changes. What is the reality that it can be done, it can be realized, and what is the time to which it can be realized? I mean, the radical changes. As a Hungarian, my second question, as a Hungarian citizen, I would support for the minimal wage and the minimal pension. But there is a reality that the Hungarian retirement pensions and the Hungarian wages are very far, lagging very far behind the European wages and retirement pensions. So if a minimum retirement pension and wage are introduced, then a lot of money will flow out. Let's suppose that there is financial means to cover these money flow. But do you take into consideration the fact that if money goes out, this will increase inflation rate? My question your question regarding not the European Union, but the United States of Europe. Okay. In 1945, at the end of the Second World War, I could show you a lot of articles that were about a very bad and strange idea that the Frenchies and the Germans can be invited to the same negotiating table. Just think about, I have to take the seat next to somebody who killed maybe my family and my wife. I have to go to the negotiating table together with those who might have been the killer of my father or taken my friends into concentration camp. This was the world at the end of the 45, and there were brave men who believed in. Then a few later they created the two communities. But now I have to tell you that we used to write at the university essays. I was a financial lawyer. At that time, it was very serious thing that the introduction of Europe, it was written by serious people at the end of the 60s or 70s. Serious economists said it's rubbish, it's not serious. The countries are so different that there will be never a common currency, euro. They insisted. There were brave people who dared to start the process, and they did the plan in a few days, years, and then half of the Europe, more than half, whatever, pays in euro. And now I think there are again brave people who started this process for the United States of Europe, because the world is moving into this direction. When we are speaking of common defense of the European borders, now the European left speaks about European common social policy, when not just Hungarians or Poles want European minimum wages, but even the Germans. It sounds better than them, no? and we have more hope if the Germans are speaking about it as well. So we have no other path. We have to move into this direction. How quickly? At what pace? How can we change the functioning of the European Union? Somebody asked about the decision-making in the Union. I don't know the exact answers. What I know is one thing, that as MEP, I would like to work for a quick speed towards this direction, but it will take longer time. The question number 2 was reality. What is the reality of European minimum wage, family allowance, and retirement pension? We were speaking about it. I always had, as an example, the tax on European, on multinationals working in Europe, tax evasion. This evaded us, so by definition we can just calculate about the sum. But even so, according to calculations, 100 million euros are not paid into in one of the member states of the European Union, because maybe member states are weak, or like Orban, they think that one can have economic progress when one is totally exposed to the economic interest of the multinationals. But I think if we decide together, we get those taxes together as a European tax, we can succeed, and we will have financial means for different purposes. Let me add one another point. We were speaking about the development strategy. The logic of setting up the European community was we set up a community, and in this way we avoid war, because we will look at the neighbors as small enterprise, consumers. But of course, this is not yet a regard that takes into consideration the social aspects, family, wife status, etc. So let's return that the development policy aimed always at increasing the competitivity of enterprises. Then let's return to a given small or medium-sized city. What will increase the renommee of a small city? If they have good restaurants, good waitresses, if the medical services are at good level, and people can read in the touristic guides that if you get ill, don't go into any institution because it's terrible. If a small entrepreneur gets some money to get a printing machine or something else, it's very good. But if he dies out of an infarctus in 5 years, then we could look back what money we gave him to do. So I would think of what our common development policy means. What is the field that we should put much more money into? Fountains, in concrete, or we should invest much more into human beings?
Good night. I'm Ivan Somos. I have a short question before. Let me allow just a couple of words as an introduction to my question. I wanted to grab the microphone when our Austrian Social Democrat friend put his very first question, maybe to Mr. Szonyi. Well, I would like to go back to what he had said, and I'd like to ask the party leaders and experts, Hungarians present here tonight, well, what is happening here in Hungary? I would like to know whether they have a common opinion on the Brexit, an opinion which is shared by all of them. And I like to hear your opinions and not myself. Well, if I have to be more concrete, I am really interested what's the opinion of the representatives of the Socialist Party, Democratic Coalition, and our former commissioner, Mr. Andor. Well, we can talk a hell of a lot about it. According to all of us, Brexit is very, very regrettable. There are just very few people who I know who wanted the Brits to leave the European Union, because this is a community with advantages for all of us. Well, it happened, and for this, what we needed was a Prime Minister who risked the future of his country and who had an economic policy which of austerity, and then they were bad-mouthing the European Union in the British press also. And then he wanted to start a campaign for remaining in the European Union, which nobody believed after the political prelude that I was talking about. I'm talking about David Cameron and his government. At the very last moment, they wanted to start a campaign to convince people to remain, and then as a latest development, it turned out that the Brits don't absolutely have any kind of agenda of how to leave the European Union. So that's what we are facing now. They just don't know, if not a member state of the EU, then how to follow in the future, how to go on in the future. And there is something that the European Union must also learn, and this is to have a look at why people are so easily believe in populist propagandas, why so many voted for the Brexit. And I must say that people didn't have a problem. The Brits didn't have a problem mostly with the European Union. They had domestic problems. They were losing their workplaces, and the EU should have a look at it, should consider it, and should give even more support to those regions lagging behind, because these are the historical accidents what we can face if we don't pay enough attention to these factors. Thank you very much. I'd like to talk about the Hungarian aspects. So it would be what I have a picture. It would be so good to see Mr. Orbán running in the morning on Margaret Island, because it would mean that he's not a prime minister anymore, but not at the price of leading Hungary out of the European Union. So Brexit is a clear example that demagogy and fake propaganda, fake news can serve to convince the majority of a great nation like the United Kingdom that they must leave the European Union. And this is what we can see here in Hungary, that the permanent fight against Brussels, against the European Union, even impersonating the European Union, it all may lead to a moment that when Mr. Orbán will no more be interested in Hungary to remain in the European Union, so maybe it will be easy to turn the Hungarian population with all this fake propaganda against the European Union. And with the hatred and with the instigation that is the policy of Mr. Orbán, that would be dreadful for Hungary, and this is a dreadful example that we all have to pay attention to. I know journalists are always very attentive when we are talking about that. Yes, there is certain reality that the Prime Minister wants to take Hungary out of the European Union. In September, when the report on Hungary been accepted, and when everybody was talking about how very much the European People's Party needed Fidesz and needed Mr. Orbán, and it turned out that that the European Parliament voted with a two-thirds majority the process against Hungary. If I had told it before, I would be ridiculized. How can I say so? Because it is important for the European People's Party to have Fidesz as an ally, and that's why they would be voting against it. And mostly they didn't. And then there is the other initiative by the European Parliament that governments which are corrupt and which are not fighting corruption and which are not respecting democracy and rule of law shouldn't receive EU funds. Well, Mr. Orban in this country just changes but nobody thinks that Prime Minister is going to propose real judges, that he is going to favor real experts in Hungary, or then he will tell to his friend Lőrinc Mészáros to stop appropriating EU funds. And so if it is true what I'm saying, it's a real danger for Hungary that there will be a moment when the EU will stop its funding, and then what's the guarantee that at this moment Orban will say, okay, we don't have the money, then let's just leave the union. Let's join the whatever organization is led by Putin. So I am putting an emphasis on that there is no guarantee that in this hypothetical situation Hungary or the current Prime Minister may try to take Hungary out from the European Union. So this is why it's important that we should stand up for our right and represent as left politicians the true interests of the Hungarian people in the European Union. Well,
I would like quickly, because mainly I do agree with what was said before me. The Brexit is a mentally illness. I'm fond of the British humour, but what I see is a quite mixture of Brian's life and yes, minister. This is some sort of a history. They just stand in front of us and they say, let's take back the control, the governance, the control over our homeland. It happened. It has happened. So, the Brits, do they leave the British in a country where they regained sovereignty? I think the British Prime Minister has never been so humiliated during their histories, where she disappears under his table, telling, oh, let's wait for another 2 days within the Union. What did the anti-EU Europeans said? This in the campaign, they said, we pay so much money to the European Union. If we withdraw, we will have so much money on medical policy or medical institutions in Britain. Are there any traces, any things that they get back the money that we sent on the agrarian policy? Great Britain has become the victim of an enormous lie. I wouldn't say that I don't feel pity for them. I do feel some, but I think this will be a terrible example, a case to disengage people. Laszlo told me, maybe, or Gergely, that they spoke too long time about the better situation outside the Union, that all problems are caused by Brussels. Then everyone will believe that it's better outside the Union and Brussels is the cause for all problems. The Union is not anymore an economic world power, but military and political world power. This is the problem. Hungary is not. If we have 3 years for the British and they could not work out a good plan for the Brexit, how could it be done in Hungary? The situation has become so complicated that we cannot destroy it or eliminate it with the bullshit. And I think they don't need it anymore. That's my opinion.
Köszönjük szépen, ezzel lezárjuk a beszélgetést, mert hogy van egy időkorlátunk, és azt már túl is léptük egy kicsit. Következzen most Olá Lajos, aki be is mutatja majd a Together program nagyköveteit.
Szép estét kívánok! A szociális érzékenység jegyében próbálok rövid lenni. Szeretettel köszöntöm magyar és más európai országból itt levő barátainkat. Talán külföldi vendégeink nem is érzik igazán, hogy milyen különleges eseménynek a részesei, hisz Orbán Viktor gyakorlatilag 9 éve nem volt olyan esemény részese, ahol bárki kérdezhette őt a politikájáról. Orbán Viktort nem lehetett gyakorlatilag interjúban se kérdezni, 9 éve csak saját embereinek adott interjút. Szeretettel köszöntjük Önöket itt.
Maybe welcome you here in Budapest. We were protecting Europe for many years here. We were protecting Europe, but not the way Mr. Orbán says. We were protecting Europe from him, from Mr. Orbán, and we were protecting Europe from the populism. Well, he won elections 3 times, but if you look at how he did it, media is owned by him. He changed the electoral law. Electoral frauds are investigated by their own people, and in many cases no inquiry has been started. And even in those cases when inquiries had been started, only 4 has come to an end. So at least we can say the Hungarian elections were not fair, and we shouldn't have any illusion. The election to the European Parliament won't be fair again here in Hungary, but we are still struggling, and we want to defeat them even with these harsh conditions. We are fighting Orbán here in Hungary. We are fighting the populism as the SND group does, because in many European countries, even though we Social Democrats are doing better and better in many countries of Europe, we still must fight. We need young flag bearers of these very noble causes, and unfortunately I am already reaching the age when I have to give it over to the youngsters, where I am a little bit losing my hand. I have a certain belly. And as a representative of the elderly generation, I would like to give awards to 2 young people. We would like to thank 2 young people for all what they have done, and we would like to encourage them to keep doing what they have been doing. Anna Abdi, who 24 years old, a fighter against social injustices. She joined the youth organization of the Albanian Socialist Party. She was 14 years ago. When I was 14, I was interested in ice creams and in girls. Well, she felt she needed much more than I had. She knows that having a happy Albania, we can only have in a happy European Union, and we can only make this dream come true about a happy Albania with fighters like she. So let's clap our hands for her. Olivier Damour, a university student, very, very young also. He is studying the European integration, and he's saying that we have to really closely work together, because this is the way to succeed. He is investigating how can it be better for all the citizens, for everybody here. He is a bit younger than you are, more younger than I am, but he still speaks about it. So let's also give a strong applause to him. And then first, I'd like to hand over the microphone for them so they can talk about themselves.
Which is a country, Hungary is a country that is located in the middle of Europe. I know that we are all facing very hard times, not only in the Union, but also outside of it. I come from Albania, which is a country that is actually located in the middle of Mediterranean region and is in the middle of Europe, near Greece and Italy. But sadly, now we are having a very big struggle about the EU integration, since there are also populist forces in Albania. The opposition has just left the parliamentary. They have left their mandates because there are many Russian influences in Albania and also Eastern influences that are trying to prevent our EU integration despite the very hard work that we are doing. I'm very happy that I'm here to support a very strong case. I'm a social democrat and I strongly believe in social democratic values. And the SND has given me the opportunity to share these views here. And I just posted my comments in the Together platform. And here I am in a democratic way to share my views with all of you here. So, as we know, labor conditions are a topic as old as history. They are always evolving and always in need for improvements. But when we are talking on labor rights, we just don't think on a group of people who are asking better conditions. It's our duty as society, as politicians, to lead to better policies. When we are thinking of workers, we need to go through their struggle and their efforts to make a living. We need to see that the corporates can give more of their share for a fair and better living of those who have less opportunities. When we think of workers, we should all and foremost see if those salaries are enough for them to make a better living, or it's just a means to survive. We need to go through the struggle that the workers have to go through their workplace, the conditions that the workers have at their workplace. We have to reach their struggle and see if they are sending home individuals who are not afraid of losing their workplace and are not affected psychologically by different factors, like is happening here in Hungary. We, as progressives, when we work and think every day about the future policies, we always hold in our minds the fairer labor conditions, our solidarity with our workers, and our focus on social rights. To us, social rights means better societies as well, happier and safer families, happier individuals, and as a result, more social security and secure societies. These are the things that we always fight for. We cannot go to better conditions of society if we don't put an effort on the above mentioned. Dear comrades, dear ladies and gentlemen that are all here tonight, fairer labor conditions, us today solidarizing with the workers, provides happier individuals, happier families, and as a result, better societies. An investment on social rights and fairer labor conditions is an investment in our future. We are responsible and in charge of it. Our vote for progressives is our contributions to the future. If you have a voice, if you want to affect a better world, decide now for the future and the future of the next generation. We really have to vote for the Europe that glorifies the human dignity by making a mindful vote for the progressives. Because history is taking notes right now, and the future of Europe is only in our hands. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm very grateful to the Europe Together and to the PES to organize that and to allow us to speak, actually, during that type of events. What shapes our common citizenships? What do we have in common between Hungarian people, German people, French people, and 28 other countries in Europe, including the UK? Well, some will say it will be the internal market. Some will say it will be our history. But for sure, the European Union was built for the people. The European Union of the people. and for the people, for the many and not for the few. And that's why I think we should build a social Europe. Then I know it's not easy. It needs unanimity in council, which never easy because they does not even agree on time change and cloud change. You know, so on social Europe we have time. But the reality is, today 16 million people across the European Union are unemployed. 50 million people are poor. 45,000 people kill themselves every year because they are unemployed. 45,000 people. That's the current situation today. How do we fix it? We have tools. We could create a minimum wage across Europe. A minimum wage that will be not about numbers, but about percentage. 60%, 70% of the median salary in the countries. We could have a common insurance, a common unemployment insurance across Europe. Why an Hungarian in France or a French in Hungary shouldn't be able to receive the proper conditions when he lost his job? There is no point in that. And that's what the European is missing. Yes, it's time. It's time for a fair Europe. And yes, it's time to build a better Europe for everybody in every country. And I will end with that thing. Some conservatives think sometimes that we should always deepen the common market, the internal market, always, always, and always. The internal market is a good tool. It's important. But there are more important things we should talk about and we should think about. And this thing is simply people. You, me, us. And I will end it by that. That's why we need a majority of socialists and social democrats in European parliaments and in national countries. Thank you very much.
Végezetül megkérném Szanyit.
Finally, may I ask member of the European Parliament, Tibor Sanyi, to for the closure of this evening. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I really liked when Bertalan Tóth said that David Cameron reminds him of a jogging man, and I would like to mention Theresa May and her dance as a dancing queen. We had many dancing queens here tonight. And I don't really want to summarize the whole evening because then I would have I should go over the whole thing. But maybe just some points as a summary, which I think are useful and interesting and important. Well, I believe there was a very interesting thing said by Mr. Tóth again, which we may not have paid enough attention to, and this is the responsibility for the next generations, the environmental responsibility for the climate change that we may and we should feel here in Europe, where the color of the socialist is red, but I would say that the new color of the socialist is the green. This is a field, this is a cause. Maybe it has been mentioned by you how much solidarity is lacking in Europe, and this is the great task for the left, to be in solidarity with the environment, with the climate. And there's another field where we are also having a great responsibility in showing our solidarity, and this is the gap between the big cities and regions lagging behind due to technological development. Of course, there is a methodology how we can reach to close this gap, but these are also very, very important issues. I believe in the future, at European level, social movements will have the task to build new institutions, and I am truly happy that former Commissioner Mr. Andor is one of the driving forces of the European Youth Guarantee Fund. And I am also very happy to have here many people, and I have to look at Udo, who has done a lot for this. And if we talk about solidarity towards young people, we couldn't be happy to have only this one tool. Well, Qatar, let me mention to you the noble case of protecting our children. It would be truly necessary to change the figure that 20% of children in Hungary live in really harsh and miserable conditions. We cannot allow this, so that's why we have to create also a European Children's Fund. And there is something that we have to create, and which is part of all the left in Hungary, what to do with the household crisis that we are facing in many, many countries in Europe. So after the two funds mentioned by me, I think a European household fund should also be created. And finally, maybe a picture that I could bring up, a picture about the Irish when they had a referendum, not really about being in or out of the European Union, but this was about accepting or not the change of the founding treaty. And that time they were posters on the street allegedly financed by the Irish government. It was about a young couple embracing each other, and with a signature, "It's better inside." I think this whole evening shows us it is better inside. It's unreasonable to dream about individual roads to follow. And you, Clara, speak so nicely for the United States of Europe, but I think that what we should really consider is the very first article of the founding treaty of the European Union: more unity. We want more unity. And Donald Tusk is right when he said that probably there is a very particular place in hell for those who had invented Brexit in such a non-responsible way. Well, I hope it's not just one particular place in hell, but hopefully there are more than one particular places in hell, and one is reserved to David Cameron, but the other one, let it be reserved for Prime Minister Orban. And finally, Hungary is not lost. Hungary is not lost. As Udo Bullmann said, you are not alone. Yes, I have to say, we are together, as was the title of our program tonight. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you so much, Mr.
Much for the closing words. I would like to invite you to a small reception, but before open up the gates, the doors, we would like to ask you for a common photo sessions. Photographers will come and tell us how to stand, because the instruction was not yet shared with me. So please stand and go there.